See you again at 6.
See you then.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. There was a lot of saluting and handshaking in Saudi Arabia today when the top brass got into town. The Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs did their bit for the troops' morale. And now they will spend 2 days going through all the ifs, ands, buts, and wherefores of a land war against the Iraqi forces in Kuwait. Picking up from their commanders in the field, as one of them said, the kind of nuance only possible in person. Our Pentagon correspondent Bob Zelnick flew to the Gulf as well.
When Secretary Cheney and General Powell arrived in Riyadh tonight, they were met by General Schwarzkopf and Saudi Chief of Staff Mohammed Salah al-Hamad. They will discuss the effect of the Allied bombing on Iraqi forces and whether American units recently arrived from Europe are ready for a ground war. On the plane trip over, Cheney and Powell appeared to rule out the idea of relying on air power alone for an extended period. Cheney said ground forces would be needed to expel Iraqi troops from Kuwait.
I think that's a bit of a false choice, the notion you'd run the air campaign for 6 months, for example. It may well be that one way to make the air campaign more effective is to add other elements to the campaign, to add the amphibious element or your ground forces in a fashion that forces him to move out of his prepared positions, and that movement out of those positions then makes him vulnerable once again to the Air Force.
Powell said a ground campaign need not produce high U.S. casualties because it would not be fought on Saddam Hussein's terms. He emphasized how Allied air supremacy had produced heavy Iraqi losses at Khafji. Powell and Cheney's first stop in Saudi Arabia was at a Western air base, headquarters for the 48th Tactical Fighter Wing.
We tried to give them some good advice a few months ago. We told them, move it or lose it. They wouldn't move it. Now they're going to lose it.
Cheney and Powell will meet with the president on Monday, and it will be George Bush who decides when the ground war begins. Powell said the president may leave a small window within which General Schwarzkopf can pick the exact date in order to ensure tactical surprise. Bob Zelnick, ABC News, Riyadh.
We've all learned a good deal these past few weeks about how enormously complicated it is to fight a war, that it is not simply a matter of counting casualties or the number of missile launchers Iraq has left. The decision on whether to advance on the ground will depend on everything from manpower to the light of the moon. Here's ABC's Bill Rediker.
When Defense Secretary Cheney and General Powell meet with military commanders in this war room, they will consider several factors. Military preparedness. Commanders say except for one armored division, the troops and their equipment are nearly ready. Most M1A1 battle tanks and attack helicopters have been positioned north, not far from the border. The Navy has increased its shelling of Iraq's shore defense positions in Kuwait. But the Air Force wants more time to bomb frontline positions, to clear minefields and blunt Iraqi artillery before U.S. troops cross the line.
The attitude of our troop is we could sit here for indefinitely and let the Air Force do their bombing. It'll just be that much more better when we go in.
Another factor is weather. The heaviest rains in recent memory here have slowed down the positioning of ground units and delayed some air attacks. The desert is now drying out. Sandstorms are becoming a big concern. The position of the moon is also a consideration. The U.S. launched the air war on a dark, moonless night to surprise Iraq and take advantage of night vision capabilities. Next week, the moon will be dark again. Tides are also a factor. Marine amphibious forces would prefer to land at high tide when the distance across exposed beaches is narrowest. 6 days of favorable tides begin 1 week from Saturday. The Islamic month of Ramadan, which begins on March 15th, will also be considered. But the commander of Arab forces today said there is no problem with Muslims fighting during that holy month.
Well, we always take, especially in Saudi Arabia, religion months and daily practice as a very important factor. But if you go to the history, there has always been fought in Ramadan or before.
Whether a ground war begins during Ramadan or before, General Powell and Secretary Cheney will have a better idea by the end of the weekend. an assessment they will carry back to Washington. Bill Redeker, ABC News, Saudi Arabia.
Consider this train of thought for the next couple of minutes with our military analyst Tony Cordesman, who joins us from Washington. Tony, there's a lot of talk now about shaping the battlefield for the land war. What does that mean?
Peter, it means we've got to go out and kill as many of the long-range artillery targets, armor targets as we can. Deny them the ability to draw on large supply depots in the forward area. Get corridors selected out of their total forces so we can drive forward, drive deeply. Now, we won't signal exactly where we're going to go in terms of shaping the battlefield by hitting their forward areas probably to the last moment.
If the Iraqis have so many ways of disguising the damage done to them or making the U.S. forces think they've done a lot of damage, how do you actually know how much you've done and when to go?
But it's a very difficult problem. We're only flying about 600 sorties a day into the Kuwaiti theater of operation. Probably about 400 of those at most can kill something, and there may be some 20,000 targets we'd like to kill. It's going to be very difficult to be really precise, but by now we probably got pretty good photo intelligence on armor, on artillery, on a lot of their supply depots. That presumably is what Secretary Cheney and General Powell are going to be discussing with General Schwarzkopf.
Okay, Tony Cordesman in Washington, thank you very much, which they will then go and talk to the President in about. In a moment, the civilian casualties in Iraq, what we see and what we cannot see. The administration's plans for a national energy strategy. And this Friday, our person of the week, the hardest way.
Flu update. The Centers for Disease Control report. 3 highly contagious flu strains, and they're spreading unchecked. Millions will be stricken. What will you do? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Theraflu is hot liquid medicine. Strong therapy for flu symptoms. Hot liquid therapy that works fast. What will you do when you get the flu? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Strong therapy for flu symptoms.
This good boy shares what he has with the rest of his class. This bad boy doesn't. There's only one Jeep Cherokee Sport.
Save $700 on new 1991 Jeep Cherokees.
Another glimpse today of what Allied bombing is doing to people on the ground. The military now says that 9 more bridges were attacked in the last 24 hours. The British released this picture of a bridge they hit yesterday. The laser-guided bomb striking just after the truck goes by. And a cameraman using a night scope took these pictures from a car on Wednesday night, anti-aircraft fire during an air raid south of Baghdad. The Iraqis speak only of civilian casualties in raids like these, but that picture, as many people sense, may well be incomplete. Here's ABC's John Dunvan.
A hospital in the town of Nasiriyah, southeast Iraq. Western news agencies, invited by the Iraqis, were told all these people were civilians. People caught in their homes when the U.S. bombs fell, or on 2 bridges Iraq says were crowded with women and children when they collapsed into the river. The Iraqis say 47 people died. They say the United States is targeting civilians. The injuries of the children are real, but a European cameraman who was there says the impression is sometimes false. Peter Juvenile arrived in Amman today.
The Iraqi government is inviting journalists to Iraq purely for propaganda purposes, to give the impression that mainly it's civilian casualties in this war.
Juvenile says he was not allowed to film anti-aircraft guns surrounding this bridge or to show that the smoke in the distance is from a military target, a burning oil refinery.
What happened to your pictures of the flames?
My pictures were erased by the government center in Baghdad.
And in the hospital, he says, officials tried to disguise the many soldiers who were casualties.
There is a soldier sitting in uniform in bed. When the camera crews actually got closer to do an interview with him, they bring this orange cover and they cover him up to the neck so you can't see his uniform.
Yet many in the Arab world believe Iraq's claim, backed up by pictures like these, that the U.S. is deliberately attacking civilians, and they are outraged. These were Jordanians coming out of Friday prayers in Amman today after hearing a speaker call on Arabs everywhere to fight the United States.
This is the time for all true and loyal people to enter the war and open new fronts.
And here in Amman, Jordanian children marching in the name of peace heard this from their older brothers.
We are going to murder you! We are going to kill you!
Sentiments like this were rarely heard in Jordan before the war began. John Donovan, ABC News, Amman.
The Iraqi government has asked the United Nations to investigate the bombing during the first week of war, what Iraq claimed was an infant formula factory, but which American officials say was a facility for biological weapons. The Washington Post today quotes the French contractor who built the factory as saying it could not have been used to produce weapons. The Pentagon says it stands by its assessment. The International Committee of the Red Cross, which looks after the interests of prisoners of war, says Iraq has refused to allow its officials to visit any Allied POWs, which the committee says it is extremely frustrating. The International Committee has already visited more than 1,200 Iraqi POWs who are in Saudi Arabia. When we come back, the U.S. and Iran and Iraq.
A lot of people can't wait until they retire. But I always liked my work. It worried me that when I turned 65, I'd have to leave. Rules are rules, and that was company policy. Then AARP helped get mandatory retirement eliminated. Now I can retire when I want to retire.
Bye, dear.
Not when someone else wants me to.
AARP, making a difference.
If this is a cold, this is the flu. Cold. Flu. Cold. Flu. If what you've got is more than a simple cold, now there's Metaflu, with a maximum dosage of 4 strong medicines to give you flu strength relief for even your worst symptoms. New Metaflu from Parke-Davis. For more than a cold. For the flu. Metaflu.
Hey, the boots come a long way for one day.
Without a hitch.
That's not what I hear.
What?
At the airport, someone swiped your wallet.
Oh, right.
What about your client dinner tonight? You know, you're sitting on the biggest order of the year.
Is Mr. Moore here? I'm Chris Moore.
I've got you a replacement card in cash from American Express.
Thanks a lot.
How did you do that?
Only one card gives you the privileges of membership. The American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
Another 13 Iraqi planes have made it to Iran in the last 24 hours. About a fifth of Iraq's Air Force is now sheltered there. 147 aircraft, all told, as best as the Allies can tell. The Iranian president said again today that his country will not take sides on what Iran has to gain by remaining neutral. Here's ABC's John McKenzie in Tehran.
From an Iranian viewpoint, the war in the Gulf has brought some immediate benefits. Its two major adversaries, the U.S. and Iraq, are fighting each other, leaving neighboring Iraq's military damaged and Iran more secure. Today, this country, with its 50 million people, is not only the Gulf's most populated country, it's once again becoming politically active. Once again, the world is coming to Tehran. In the past week, President Rafsanjani has met almost daily with a different foreign minister or emissary. Iran's first priority is to keep the United States from gaining dominance in the wake of a victory over Iraq. But at the same time, it's also trying to overcome some of the hostility between the two countries. Iran, under Rafsanjani, would like to improve its relations, especially economic ones, with the West, including the United States.
If you have relation with a country, it doesn't mean that we think they are the righteous policy holder. We have good relation with Soviet Union, we have good relation with all Europe. It doesn't mean that we approve their policies. No, I think the minimum base, that we feel that the other side is not hostile to us.
Iranians no longer discuss whether they might help influence the release of American hostages in Beirut. They say if Washington wants better relations, opening trade and releasing frozen Iranian assets would make a good beginning. John McKenzie, ABC News, Tehran.
From the Soviet Union today, a couple of suggestions that Soviet support for the Allied effort is not all that solid. The Soviet Deputy Foreign Minister has accused the U.S. and its allies of deliberately destroying civilian areas in Iraq. And in an article entitled "Oil Smelling of Blood," the Soviet government newspaper Pravda says the war is primarily about protecting U.S. oil interests. In a moment, an advanced look at the administration's plans to meet future energy needs.
Places of beauty, places of intrigue, as seen from the decks of the world's best cruise line. Come, feel the splendor of the world from aboard the ships of Holland America.
Stouffer's invites you to eat like you really like to eat. Introducing 8 of your all-time home-style favorites, like tender Salisbury steak with our original macaroni and cheese, sliced turkey breast in gravy with homemade stuffing. And to tempt you even more, they're all under 370 calories. So dig in. They're new from Stouffer's.
Gene Siskel calls Once Around the first really good film of 1991.
First aid! Who's the guy? Oh, my new boyfriend. No, come on, who's he really?
Newsweek says it's refreshing and funny.
Dad!
The most memorable movie family since Moonstruck raves sneak previews.
No! Yes!
Richard Dreyfuss, Holly Hunter, Danny Aiello, Laura San Giacomo, and Jenna Rollins. Once Around, rated R. Now playing at theaters everywhere.
Before I even consider taking a medicine, I have to feel good about it. So before I switched from Tylenol to Advil, I did my homework. I found that doctors have recommended Advil over 50 million times, and that over 100 million people have tried it. That includes me. And you know, 2 Advil work better on my really tough headaches than 2 extra-strength Tylenol. Hey, I don't take just any medicine, but I do take Advil. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Ever since U.S. troops were sent to the Gulf, many Americans have been asking whether President Bush was planning anything to make the U.S. less dependent on Middle East oil, whether he had an energy policy. After nearly 2 years of study, the administration is about to present its plan. We've managed to get our hands on an advanced copy. Here's ABC's Ned Potter.
In the debate between producing more oil and making better use of what we already have, the new draft leans heavily toward producing more oil. The bill calls for many measures the administration has been known to favor, in particular more production of domestic oil by drilling in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. It also makes it easier to get licenses to build atomic power plants. Environmental groups say the plan is lopsided in favor of industry.
The oil industry gets the nation's most beautiful wildlife refuge, and the nuclear industry gets easy, quick-stop licensing for nuclear reactors that no one can afford.
The plan includes measures to promote new auto fuels like natural gas, but it says very little about energy efficiency, things like requiring higher mileage for regular cars.
This package places lip service on energy conservation, but there's no significant policy initiative to promote it.
Sources say that's because of the president's concerns for the economy. He has warned against energy taxes or expensive programs that would force the country to make dramatic changes.
We must avoid unwise and extreme measures that would seriously hurt American consumers, American jobs, American industries.
The administration emphasizes the plan is not final and the president may yet add new items. But sources say the plan is almost complete and should be going to Congress in about 10 days. Ned Potter, ABC News, New York.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials gained 20 points to close at 2830. The trading was heavy. That brought the gain for the week to 100 points. For the duration of the Gulf War, a few old soldiers are saying they don't want to fade away. Members of the armed forces must retire at 60. Richard Martinez, a master sergeant in the Army Reserves from East San Jose, California, is less than a year away from mandatory retirement. But he wants to go to the Gulf, and he may. ABC's Ken Kashiwahara.
After 40 years in the Army Reserves, after 12 children, 37 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren, 59-year-old Richard Martinez said his life was incomplete. He had never served his country in war. And with a grandson in the Persian Gulf, Martinez decided he wanted to be there too.
Something tells me that he needs me over there. I feel that I should do that. You know, I sort of felt like this all my life. You know, do what your heart tells you to do.
For Martinez's daughter Elizabeth, that would mean worrying not only about her son in the Persian Gulf, but her father too.
Right now I'm scared, worried and scared. But I know that they both want to be over there to serve their country, and I know they'll both be back.
It took Martinez 5 months to convince the Army to call him to active duty. As a staff sergeant major, he would not be on the front lines. Still, at a farewell family dinner, family support occasionally was overcome by family concern. Before he left for active duty, Martinez paid a visit to his father's grave to pray and went to his 83-year-old mother for her blessing, a family tradition, he said.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. I love you too. Thank you.
This morning, Richard Martinez left for Fort Knox, Kentucky, and from there he hopes to the Persian Gulf. It is his last chance to complete his military career, he says, to do what even a weekend warrior is trained to do, go to war. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News, San Jose, California.
We'll be back in just a moment.
World News Tonight with Peter Jennings and the Person of the Week are brought to you by Jeep and Eagle.
3 reminders from a leader in 4-wheel drive and all-wheel drive technology. 1. Don't try this without the advantage of 4-wheel drive. 2. Don't try this without the advantage of all-wheel drive. And 3, don't try 1 or 2 without the advantage of Jeep or Eagle.
When 1 in 4 adults looks at dairy food, their stomach says stop, say no now, or pay later. Antacids aren't made for this problem, called lactose intolerance. But new Dairy Ease is. It's not an antacid, but a natural nutritional supplement that helps comfortable digestion of ice cream, cheese, and milk. Now enjoy dairy food as naturally as everyone else with pleasant-tasting, chewable new Dairy Ease.
When you're all stuffed up and use an ordinary nasal spray, it drips into your tissue where it can't help you breathe. But not Sinex Ultrafine Mist. Its medicine stays where you need it, so you can breathe the way you want to. We don't drip down, we clear up.
Poison ivy, insect bites, rashes. Too many choices.
You only need one. Cordade.
Stop the itch and heal the rash with a brand doctors recommend most.
Present Arms.
Cordade, the only aid you need.
Tonight, uncensored tales of terror about what's really going on in Iraq from people who have escaped. Plus, who gets the leftover money from a company gone bankrupt? Not the little guys they owe it to. Watch 2020 tonight.
For the first time since the war began, we have the time, and we very much think the right candidate for Person of the Week. The right person because when it comes to the subjects of duty and honor and country that everyone is talking about so much, this is a man who understands it deep in his bones. We also choose him because in this 4th week of war, many people may not have noticed, it is Black History Month.
There weren't an awful lot of opportunities open to blacks in 1927, 8, and 9 when I came along and was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life.
So as Benjamin Davis now recalls, hearing about Charles Lindbergh's famous flight across the ocean was instrumental in his future.
And from that time on, I wanted to be a pilot.
When Ben Davis retired from the military 20 years ago, he was the highest-ranking black American ever to have served in the U.S. Air Force. If it seems as if what's coming is a typical rags-to-riches American dream story, it is anything but. Benjamin Davis was born in Washington, D.C. and raised on Army bases around the country. His father, an enlisted soldier in the Spanish-American War, rose against great odds for a black man then to the rank of general in the U.S. Cavalry.
I learned that the impossible could be achieved. He taught me the very important human quality of perseverance.
His father convinced a black congressman to appoint Davis to West Point. Davis went to the Point in 1932. Until his autobiography was published this week, Ben Davis has never openly talked about his experience at West Point, where he would become the first black cadet to graduate in this century.
I'd always admired West Point cadets. I thought they represented the finest of American manhood, and I wanted to be one of them.
Davis never became one of them. On only his third night at the academy, Davis happened onto a meeting of his classmates.
And found out that the meeting was about me and not exactly for me.
What to do about the nigger, as he recounts it now? His fellow cadets had decided to silence him. He would live alone, eat alone, ride alone, and be spoken to by no one outside the classroom. The only social contact he had during those 4 years at West Point was during occasional visits from the woman who would become his wife, Agatha.
I was treated as being a person unworthy of being at West Point because I was a black man. The only effect that had on me was to make me more and more determined to stay there for 4 years and to be graduated and go into the Army.
Nonetheless, Davis graduated near the top of his class in 1936. He wanted to be a pilot, but the only black units then were in the infantry. With the onset of World War II, the all-white Army Air Corps was desperately in need of more pilots. Finally, Davis had his chance. He and a group of black soldiers were accepted to the Tuskegee Institute Flight School. The combat record of the 99th Pursuit Squadron, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Ben Davis, was exemplary.
I knew that how we performed during these missions would set the stage for the position, the respect, and the acceptance of black people in the post-war Air Force.
And of the black men and women currently serving in great numbers in the military, General Davis tells them exactly what he told his pilots back in 1940.
Be proud of yourselves, carry out the missions that are assigned you, and set the stage for future recognition by America.
Ben Davis is 78 now. Along with Agatha, he is enjoying his retirement, writing and reminiscing.
That was when you were young.
I have lived a long life. I'm married to a wonderful girl. There's no bitterness in my mind, nor is there any bitterness in my heart.
And so we choose General Benjamin Davis, Jr., retired. It is hard to get that image of him being so alone at West Point out of the mind. He couldn't even get his Red Cross life-saving certificate because no one would be his buddy. We find all these stories, the sad ones and the better ones, in his autobiography, which was published this week to coincide with Black History Month. He says he feels better having written it all down. He calls the book Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., America. That's our report on World News Tonight. We'll have the latest on the Gulf every hour on the hour and on 2020 and Nightline. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
And now, the news continues with Channel 2 News at 6.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Mueller.
And I'm Ann Holt. In our news tonight, backers of a bill to keep the military from sending both parents to war have gained the reluctant support of Tennessee Congressman Don Saunders.